So, coming to ocular tuberculosis, whether it is still recognized as a part of extrapulmonary tuberculosis is not something very clear to us, because even in a policy statement from national India government, there is hardly any mention of ocular tuberculosis or regarding the management or in the diagnosis. So, whether we are even then, the ocular tuberculosis is a very important condition because of its potential impact on vision loss and also onto the diagnostic and management challenges that it will pose to the ophthalmologist. Moreover, it's a disease which can affect any part of your eye, both external eye structures and internal eye structures, and can be a vision threatening condition, especially when it is a chronic recurrent disease. The whole situation is more complex because of the lack of a golden diagnostic test which will confirm and tell you that this is ocular tuberculosis for you. And like all other extrapulmonary tuberculosis, there are global variations due to the endemicity of the disease. Now, when you say ocular tuberculosis, it can be an extraocular manifestation or an intraocular manifestation. But extraocular tuberculosis is relatively very, very rare. So that we will not suspect tuberculosis as a cause in extraocular manifestations. So, as I said earlier, this can affect any of the ocular structures, but when you see an eyelid abscess or a proptosis with a mass lesion, and that is palpable to with proptosis of the eye, or sometimes there can be a keratoconjunctivitis or a scleritis or a conjunctival granuloma. All these conditions suspect as tuberculosis type. But when it is not healing or not responding to your conventional line of treatment, they may suspect it as other possible causes, and we will go ahead and do a biopsy where a tissue diagnosis is possible. So in these cases, it is more or less a straightforward diagnosis, and there are not much of complexity in diagnosing and managing these situations. But when you say ocular tuberculosis, what we are trying to say or include is intraocular tuberculosis, where the visually sensitive inner part of the eye is involved. So this picture shows the normal retina. Because it's a non-ophthalmology community, if you know this is as the normal retina, you can see the extent of damage this disease can produce onto the visually sensitive structures of the eye. So, whenever I say ocular tuberculosis, we are trying to talk about intraocular tuberculosis, and that is the challenging situation. So, in intraocular tuberculosis, how do they manifest? There are some typical classical clinical features where you will suspect it as a tuberculosis etiology, even with the classic features. So most of the time, intraocular tuberculosis or ocular tuberculosis present as an ocular inflammatory disease, that is uveitis. So it can present as a tuberculous anterior uveitis or a tuberculous posterior uveitis. And in tuberculous posterior uveitis, there are a different variety of conditions or clinical presentations, and that can be typical or sometimes atypical. So the importance of these non-clinical phenotypes is that when you see them, you are suspecting this as a possible case of ocular tuberculosis. Whereas there are other situations where you may not suspect it as a case of ocular tuberculosis, but when you do evaluation or investigation, then tests will come as positive, and then you are not very sure. So coming to each clinical condition, tuberculous anterior uveitis, when they present with granulomatous keratic precipitates, iris granulomas, or even broad-based synechiae, then it is more or less a clinical diagnosis of granulomatous uveitis, which we will suspect between tuberculosis and maybe sarcoidosis in some situations. So the diagnosis is narrowed down to granulomatous uveitis, and most of the time we will get some supportive evidence and the treatment is initiated. Whereas in posterior uveitis, there are a lot of clinical manifestations, sometimes which can mimic autoimmune uveitis, or it can be very typical. So the classic features of a tuberculous-like choroiditis is to be understood by the by the examining ophthalmologist. So when it is a serpiginous-like choroiditis, that is one of the typical manifestation of tuberculous choroiditis. But when you say serpiginous like choroiditis, you should know that there is another serpiginous choroiditis, which is an autoimmune based condition. So in these cases, you have to know the typical features which will differentiate an autoimmune uveitis from this tuberculous infective uveitis. You can see that even when these lesions heal and there will be scarring on the retina, there is enough destruction to affect vision. Now, retinal vasculitis or affecting the retinal venules or veins, often present as periphlebitis, is something which is very important, progressive, and most of the time it occurs in very young adults. And these are diseases which can produce hypoxia to the retina, which can later on present with complications like sudden loss of vision due to vitreous hemorrhage or due to traction retinal detachment. So periphlebitis is very classical of ocular tuberculosis, and this has some other subtle features which we should be knowing to differentiate it from other causes of vasculitis. Now, the third important clinical feature which is suggestive of ocular tuberculosis is choroidal tubercles. You will be seeing discrete yellowish white lesions which are separate, and along with there will be vasculitis also, and these tubercles can occur anywhere, most of the time in the posterior pole, and sometimes you can see similar kind of choroidal nodular lesions in the peripheral vitreous or in the peripheral retina, and then we diagnose it as intermediate uveitis. In these situations, again, these are choroidal granulomas, and these are mostly due to either tuberculosis or due to sarcoidosis. So the diagnosis is narrowed down to these two conditions. The same tubercles can be appear as huge tuberculomas or granulomas involving the posterior pole of the retina. Most of this time, most of these choroidal tuberculomas will have hemorrhages in it, which is again a typical finding related to ocular tuberculosis. So all these, whatever I have enumerated, are typical clinical appearances which may mimic ocular tuberculosis, where you need to have a high index of suspicion to further evaluate the case. But then there are certain atypical situations, like where the whole compartment of the eye, both intraocular and extraocular compartment, is both anterior segment and posterior segment is involved with the inflammation, and patient will present with panuveitis, endophthalmitis like picture, can be bilateral. These kind of pictures we are seeing more often during post-COVID times, and in these situations, any bacterial infection of the eye can produce these kind of manifestations. So one will not be suspecting tuberculosis as the primary etiology, but when you investigate, sometimes it will turn out to be endophthalmitis. But in an endemic country, the tuberculosis should be there in the list of suspicions and has to be investigated in situations where all other causes are excluded and where it is not responding to the conventional treatment. So when will you suspect ocular tuberculosis? You will suspect it when there are typical clinical phenotypes, or when there is atypical, but you have excluded all other possible causes and disease is recurring or it is progressing in spite of your appropriate corticosteroid therapy or for anti-inflammatory therapy. Sometimes we do repeat the test and then the tuberculosis test will be coming positive. In these situations, you are suspecting it as ocular tuberculosis. Once you have suspected, the next step is to confirm the tuberculosis, and there lies all the problems. Because as previous speakers were pointing it out, we only have some immunological test or a radiology which will only tell you about the possibility of a previous exposure to the disease. And we don't have a gold standard test which will tell you that this is ocular tuberculosis. So what are the tests which we can do is, most of the time it is a Manto or a PPD skin test. We hardly do interferon gamma release, and PCR is no longer trusted. And all these tests lack sensitivity, specificity, and there is no standardization for any type of patients. Ideally, we should discourage screening of low-risk group of patients where there is no suspicion of tuberculosis. You should better not do these kind of tests. And in radiology, again, if you are finding a healed lesion or a scar which is suggestive of a previous exposure, then it will be contributing to your diagnosis. But if you look for active systemic tuberculosis, either in the pulmonary or in anywhere else, you are not going to get at in ocular tuberculosis as part of it. So even in literature, it says that there is hardly any evidence of coexisting pulmonary tuberculosis along with ocular tuberculosis. And also, it is important to know that except in miliary form of tuberculosis, there are hardly any ocular manifestations that we will see if you do evaluation in pulmonary tuberculosis patients. Now, once you have decided and you have reached a diagnosis of ocular tuberculosis, then you are supposed to start the treatment. So again, there are so many challenges in decision making because the scenarios can be different. Some may be having typical with positive tests. Some may be having atypical features with positive tests. Some will be having equivocal tests where you are still doubtful. And any of these situations, there will not be any indication of active systemic tuberculosis. So we ophthalmologists do not speak a common language because what appeared to me as ocular tuberculosis may not be ocular tuberculosis for another person who is having a different level of practice and different level of experience with managing ocular tuberculosis. So it is influenced by so many factors. And when you recommend anti-tuberculosis treatment to a patient who doesn't have a biopsy confirmation or who doesn't have active pulmonary or any other form of tuberculosis, we can easily confuse our physicians too. So when we start the treatment, again, there are so many questions. Why we are giving anti-tuberculosis treatment if it is an ocular inflammation and we are giving corticosteroids for that? And most of the time patients do respond partially maybe. Whether you will give anti-tuberculosis treatment and corticosteroids together or whether one after the other. So there are so many questions. When you ask these questions, what is sure is that anti-tuberculosis treatment is important in a patient with ocular tuberculosis because it reduces the recurrence, and the damage to the visually sensitive structures is mainly due to the recurrence of the disease and the chronicity of the inflammation. So if you are almost certain about the diagnosis, you are supposed to give anti-tuberculosis treatment, but when it is not yet sure. And corticosteroids are absolutely indicated in ocular tuberculosis because control of inflammation is absolutely indicated because that is what produces damage to visually sensitive structures within the eye. So it has to be a treatment with a combination of anti-tuberculosis treatment and corticosteroids in ocular tuberculosis, but when to give is not something which we are still not very sure. So then the gray areas are more because if you consider the disease burden, there are various terminologies which are used differently by different ophthalmologists, and the diagnosis is also again confusing because of the complexities in picking up the findings and treatment, whether to give ATT or steroids or combination or both. And the issue of paradoxical worsening is much more complex in ophthalmology because when we start the patient on anti-tuberculosis treatment, there will be paradoxical worsening. If it occurs, the patient's vision will further deteriorate, and their trust in continuing the anti-tuberculosis treatment, and to convince the patient the importance of continuing the long-term treatment is also very, very difficult for the surgeon and for the treating pulmonologist. And the issue of resistant TB is not very common, or maybe I haven't encountered many cases. So with all these questions in mind, all these questions I was trying for have started an initiative of collaborative ocular tuberculosis study. We started in 2017. And what they tried to do is to establish an agreement for initiating anti-tuberculosis therapy in patients with ocular TB using a scientific approach. This is done internationally with concurrence with all international ocular inflammation and uveitic societies. So what there were 3 phases, and first and second is over. The third one is yet to start. So this multicentric international collaborative group has what they did is they first formed a steering committee of experts with 81 global experts, including ophthalmologists, pulmonologists, and ID physicians. And they identified the important clinical questions which I was raising in the previous slides. So then they reviewed all the systematically reviewed all the publications on use of anti-tuberculosis treatment for tuberculous uveitis. And they met several times, and consensus statements were released. So in a nutshell, what they tried to develop is an evidence and experience-based treatment recommendation for tuberculous choroiditis. So all these data is already published in many international and national journals. Recommendations is what giving some guideline regarding when you should ask the patient or the pulmonologist to start the ATT. So the recommendations include, if in tuberculous uveitis choroiditis, you can start anti-tuberculous treatment if any one of the immunological tests is positive, with a positive radiology showing a scar lesion. So in tuberculoma and in species like choroiditis, which are very typical of tuberculosis uveitis, even one positive result is enough. Whereas in first episode of tuberculous anti-uveitis, you need both the tests to start anti-tuberculous treatment. But if it is a recurrent disease, maybe you can without test. During this COTS in meetings, they realized there is a lot of terminologies misused and confusion regarding the nomenclature. So they tried to standardize how to report tuberculous uveitis, and the terminologies has been described with classical definition of the clinical findings, which we are seeing in our clinical practice. So this will tell you, this article in Indian Journal of Ophthalmology, published very recently, it tells you where are we today as far as tuberculosis is concerned. So from that journal article, I can summarize the whole this thing as: the decision to treat tuberculosis, ocular tuberculosis, is still made by the ophthalmologist, but we request the chest and IVD physicians to rely on our intuition and our suspicion of tuberculous uveitis. And the COTS group is trying to address the uncertainties related to the management of tuberculous uveitis, and they are forming consensus guidelines for initiation of treatment. And in future, the second phase of COTS, they are planning or already started prospective multi-center trial, which will come with more clarity on guidelines of management, the duration of treatment. And having said, in the previous TB, the difference between Crohn's disease and tuberculosis has feeling that it is very difficult clinically, and you may sometimes it is a therapeutic intervention that will help you in diagnosing. So we had recently a case which is a child who is and started on at 3 months. Multiple biopsies were done, previous discussions were there and all. So they presented a sudden onset of a gross defect vision in the left eye. This is how it looked like. So many multifocal choroiditis involved, threatening the macula with a gross defective vision. And the child was very poorly nourished and 18-year-old. And on further exam, from the clinical picture, which is very much like a choroidal tubercle. So we, after consulting with all the department, we had to stop, got the consent to stop azathioprine and started pure treatment with because the lesion is so threatening the macula that we have to have a timely intervention. Otherwise, it will end up in a scarring the vision. So started they're waiting for, and finally it came out as tuberculosis. The scar healed and patient recovered vision fully. So these are situations where your clinical diagnosis matter more than anything. So this is the stage. This is the actual picture even now. Thank you.